Amplifying Black voices, speaking down barriers. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Margie TV. Today we are amplifying Black voices, and we have Devlin from Speaking Down Barriers joining us today. Hold on tight. Let me tell you a little bit about Devlin before we bring her into the house. Well, Devlin is the executive director of Speaking Down Barriers, and we are excited to partner with Chapman Cultural Center to amplify Black artists and organizations who have been impacted by the agency's community grants program. A little about the program. The program awards up to $5,000 per application and is open to both individual artists and nonprofits, government agencies in Spartanburg. A description about what Speaking Down Barriers does. Speaking Down Barriers started as poetry and conversation. In November 2013, a group of mostly Black spoken word poets began to talk about race and racism in ways that implicated white supremacy. These conversations were centered around spoken word poetry, which uses poetic devices with the first person narrative, and took place in the chapel of a majority white church in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The conversations grew in diversity and in topic, and their mission is equity for all, and they have two strategic imperatives: to end oppression and value everyone. Now, back to describing who Devlin is. Devlin, who is the executive director of Speaking Down Barriers, is the one who's going to be shedding a light on what the nonprofit has been doing. She is a womanist and a queer abolitionist who believes abolition is about creating beloved community and making things. She has an MA in marriage and family therapy from Converse College, where she is working on a second MA in creative writing with an emphasis in poetry. Alongside providing counseling services, Devlin has led support groups, presented research, and conducted university presentations around racial trauma and oppression. She enjoys facilitating groups and presenting about equity and journeying with folks through the grieving process. Devlin is a spiritual director, a healer, and spiritual midwife. Now, to learn more about Devlin, you can go on margiemarch.com to our blog and read about this lady. So without much further ado, I am going to bring Devlin into the house so that we can learn about Speaking Down Barriers. Hi, Devlin.
Hello, hello, hello. It's good to be here. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. I'm excited about this conversation.
Well, welcome to Margie TV. We are happy to have you here, and we are thankful to have this partnership with Chapman Cultural Center, where we are amplifying Black voices during Black History Month.
It's a good thing to do during Black History Month, you know.
Yes, and throughout the year, because every day is Black History Day. Yes,
facts. Yes, definitely.
Now, I know that the community grants program that Chapman Culture Center has helped Speaking Down Barriers in so many ways. Could you explain to me further what program you implemented with those funds and where you are now?
Yeah, we did something called Transformation Day. We've been doing Transformation Day for a few years. Actually, the first time we did it, we also got the Chapman Cultural Grant a few years ago. So we decided to apply again. It is to do a community event that's focused on the arts community, in addition to having dialogue around all the things that would separate us. So it's based in equity. So the folks, the artists, we had Black folks from kind of all communities, you know, because we're not a monolith. So there were queer Black folks, Black women, children. It was just really great. We had ages from like 11 to in the 50s, people who were producing art. So for me, that is equity, right? It's not putting anybody on the sidelines. It's wanting to hear from folks who are on the margins and why are they on the margins, right? And who gets to decide who the margins are. So we wanted to center people who aren't normally centered. In addition to food, we also had some food. We had some, that's also art, right? So there is chef from Haiti who provides some Haitian dishes, as well as some Puerto Rican dishes also. So it was really cool to be able to get all those things combined in one event.
And so, did the funds also provide for the food, or was the food donated?
No, no, it was not donated. It was provided for everything: the food, the artists, the place where we had, because it was mostly online, but we had a section of it where people could come and view art and also, you know, pick up the food. So we wanted to have a hybrid that kind of where people could see each other, but not too much because it was heavy COVID times in November, and so we wanted to make sure the community was safe.
Thank you for sharing this. And what has been some of the feedback that you have received about that program that you had?
You know, we did a survey and people loved it. You know, they loved the opportunity to. There was a video, a filmmaker involved. Her name's Audria, and Audria, you know, had shared a short film. In addition to, people were really amazed at the art that the children produced, because it was so. I mean, the theme of the day was, "What if equity for all was a reality?" And so people produced art dealing with that. And so the things that the children produced was like you know, just blew my mind, you know, their thoughts on what equity for all would look like and being able to show that in artistic form. That's a lot for a 11, 12-year old, 54-year-old, anybody to produce. And they did a really great job. And so people loved the art, and loved the conversation that it pushed us toward.
Now, did you have to guide the children? Did you provide any guidelines on what to put in the art, or everything just came from their hearts?
Came from their hearts. The guideline I gave was, hey, let's produce some art. And I had already worked with them before in a personal project of mine. So I knew that they were talented artists. And so when I asked, they were like, yeah, we'd love to. And the only guideline I gave was, what if equity for all was a reality? And could you produce something with that in mind? And so, you know, they talked with their parent about it and just was like, what do we do? What do we do? And I think they did several sketches and ended up making two pieces each. So it was great.
Oh, wow. So you worked with them in individual settings with their families. Is that
Hmm.
what you did?
Yes. Yep.
Do you ever partner with schools to implement your projects?
We're working right now with the Spartanburg Academic Movement. They have a out of school time OST collaborative, and so we work with them at Spartanburg Prep to host a afternoon program. It's called the Jaguar Collective, Spartanburg Jaguar Collective, and so collaborative. Sorry, and so we do poetry, talk about feelings. There's some art involved later on in the sessions. We're about 3 weeks in. It's a 12-week program. And so that's what we're doing right now to work in a school with that parameter, and it's been really good. You know, people have enjoyed that, and yeah.
And what is the long-term goal of that program? Being in that school for that 12-week period, what is your long-term goal?
I think the goal of the collaborative is to help the students, is to help with behavior, to help with grades, to see if having, you know, this program Monday through Thursday from 3 to 5 or 3:30 to 5:30 is beneficial, and how is it beneficial, and is what we're doing some change. And so I think they're gonna be looking at data to see if grades and stuff improve and if behavior improves, so that we can, for us too, we want people to be able to identify their emotions and to be healthy. And one way you do that is by using the arts as a tool. And so we want to give them that ability also to, you know, I'm feeling all these emotions. What do I do? Oh, maybe I can write a poem, or maybe I can draw something. And so to use those things to create art. ultimately is our goal too.
Now, do you have a curriculum that you follow?
We have one that we created. So yeah, we're following one that we created for the students.
And how did you create it? Did you have experts from different fields, or is it based on life experience? How did you create that curriculum?
So we create all of our curriculum with speaking on barriers. We I don't know that maybe curriculum is a strong word, but we have ways that we facilitate that we have seen be positive over the last 8 years, and so those include dialogue, lots of dialogue, and maybe like a small teaching portion based off wherever you have expertise. And so since my background as a marriage and family therapist, I have some education around introducing feelings, and the masters in poetry is helping with sharing what is poetry, what does it even mean if I'm a poet. And so to put those things together in a curriculum that's age appropriate, it's something that we're all doing together as well. There's four of us who are facilitators, and so we build that program, that curriculum together. I don't do anything by myself. Let me be clear about that. I'm not. I'm not a. I'm the superwoman, or I am the person that does everything by herself. I do not. There's a team of people always. So with Speaking Down Barriers, there's an executive team. So I myself am the executive director, but we also have a lead trainer and a strategist, Dr. Dominique Vadrine, and Scott Neely, and the three of us together are we do it together. It's a flat hierarchy. There's no hierarchy. And so we work with the board and our facilitator team, and we try to keep it as flat as possible because we don't want to reproduce white supremacy. That's not the goal. It's to make a leader who's out there, stand on a pedestal. That's not the life for me. I need people. And so community is the best way.
Community is important indeed. Now, my next question is, so do you do your work locally in Spartanburg, or do you travel outside of South Carolina to be able to deliver your message?
So we do a lot of work in Spartanburg, in the upstate, Greenville as well, working with schools and businesses, talking about how to move forward with equity. In addition to working in Philadelphia with Philadelphia Fight, it's an HIV/AIDS organization doing resources and helping folks, live and live well. And so we've been able to do some work with them, in addition to helping a community in Muskegon, Michigan, to start their own Speaking on Barriers. Excuse me. It's called the CGI, the Community Gathering Initiative. So we're not like over them or you need to do this. None of that. It's more of a partnership. Hey, you want to know what we did? This is what we did, and maybe it'll help you. And so we have a partnership with them to try to do that. And we're open to working anywhere. It would be really great if there was a Speaking Down Barriers like organization in every state in the U.S. having these conversations, but not only the conversations that move toward action, that move toward how do you make equity real in your daily life? How do I use my areas of privilege to help those who don't have what I have? Right? It's about giving back to the community.
And now that, through this pandemic, we have learned that we can have outreach virtually as well. So you can basically reach any part of the country or world that is ready to accept speaking down barriers.
Yeah. The virtual world has opened up so many opportunities. And so we moved all of our programming online when the pandemic started, and our programming still is mostly online. Um, we're looking to see if this is actually going to be a period of time where things are going to change for the better. It's still kind of iffy, but if so, we really want to get back into the community too. We miss, because one of the things we do is have a potluck together, and we miss that time of just getting together and eating and talking and chatting about the day and building rapport with one another. So that helps build trust, and then have the conversation. It's been harder to not have that time and then dive into deep conversations because people don't have there's just something about looking at someone face to face while you're like talking about your day and having a meal together that's not the same online.
Yeah. It's not the same online, and I know that when you have food, it also brings out some kind of joy in the
Yes.
people that have congregated. I was at a basketball game yesterday, and the kind of energy that we had there, I was thinking, oh my goodness, COVID did take a lot from us because
Mhm.
when the pandemic was at its high, we couldn't shout and scream and have that many people in that arena supporting a team. So yes, it's important to get back in person. Um, Now, my question for you is, how do you get your funding? Because you're a nonprofit and you're not just reaching people in your local area. So how do you get your funding?
We get funding in a myriad of ways. Grant writing, there is a lot of organizations that are poised to give. It's just trying to find those, and see where it lines up with our mission and vision. We've received funding from the South Carolina Arts Commission since we're all about art and poetry. Everything we do is kind of centered around that and then moving toward the dialogue. So we've been able to get some grants from them, as well as working with some sister song and reproductive justice because we worked with doulas and birth workers. We have also trainings. So our trainings end up putting money back into the organization. So we did trainings with Milliken, with a financial planning company in Columbia. We work with Wofford, Converse College, and so when we do those trainings end up being very supportive for us as an organization. Also,
So with your trainings at those we have diversity, equity, and inclusion departments in organizations now, in companies now. Is that the kind of training that you provide? What are some of the subjects that you broach?
yeah, we talk about one of our big trainings is beyond diversity and inclusion, and that conversation is around equity, because for us, when you say inclusion and diversity, who's doing the including? And why are they doing the including? Who's doing the diversifying and why are they doing the diversifying? And so we take a look at the history of racialized oppression and white supremacy and move forward to talking about implicit bias and explicit bias, and then move to talking about equity, because of course we'd rather be included than not included, so that's not a bad thing. It's just like, how do we move that forward, into to an even deeper way of being people who are connected to other people who are different from us. In addition to that, we have some trainings around story, the not only the like benefit for you for telling your story, but the benefit from other people hearing your story. And what does that do? Because it does something to the brain when we make a meaning of something. And so we talk about those kinds of things as well. What does it mean to hear someone's story in a non-judgmental, accepting kind of attitude, and what does it do to you to invite that story and then to tell your own?
I picked a word from there, non-judgmental, and that's something that I think all of us have to work on because sometimes it's like, I know myself, Margie. It's like I got some shade. I'm like,
That's right. Throw a little bit. It
I,
is. It's
I
yeah.
we all have preconceived notions, and
Mhm,
there is no
mhm.
lie about that. I mean,
So
it
true.
could be anything because I know that I throw shade, and
Mhm.
so I might need to speak to you guys, about that non-judgmental part.
I think it's more like setting the judgment aside is probably more accurate. It's like, okay, I had it, it came up, prejudice, stereotype, whatever it was. It came up, but how do I put that aside and not act out of that? And constantly be changing because we're judging because we've had experience that's lead us to a certain thing, or we've learned it from our caregivers. And so, what does it mean to be like, huh? That's actually not true. So and so people aren't like this because I know these people and I don't know all the people. So maybe this judgment is not something I want to hold on to. So it's about being self-aware too, which takes time and energy. And a lot of times we are urgently trying to run after whatever's in front of us. I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. It's like, whew, let's let go of some of that urgency.
I know that urgency. Sometimes I when I'm about to judge, I ask myself, what would Jesus do? And then
Ooh.
and then I tell myself, I'm not Jesus. Oh, I'm sorry. So some kind of we all need to learn empathy and
Mm,
ways to
so
relate
true.
and how to get rid of our bias. Now you did talk about inclusion and a new word that it's not a new word. It's a word that I've heard in the DEI realm is welcoming. Do
Mm.
you care to elaborate and on welcoming and does speaking down barriers also focus on that?
I think we would say that our welcoming looks more like our second imperative, which is valuing everyone. We value everyone for their inherent human dignity. So it's not about what you do. You can't do enough to make yourself more worthy or valuable, and you can't do enough to make yourself not worthy as a human. So people's actions, of course, sometimes are abhorrent and they're terrible, and the actions are evil. And yet, if I start taking away your humanity, I take away my own. So the welcoming is, hey, everybody has value, so you're welcome in this room, right? We're not going to allow violence to go on or violent speech. We're going to definitely confront that and hold people accountable. And yet, the valuing of your humanity is, please sit down at the table. So I think that's what I would say about speaking out barriers.
That's impactful. The value of our humanity, sitting down at the table, because in this day and age, there's a lot of differences amongst
Mhm.
us, and it's so hard to come to a consensus because we're not willing to listen to each other,
Yeah.
and, and things get blown out of proportion when we're not willing to listen to each other. One thing you said was when you started out, you started at a predominantly white church. That's something that people may not expect based on what you stand for. But if people can come together regardless of race, gender,
Mhm.
religion, is that what Speaking Down Barrier stands for?
Yes, for sure. Let's come together. And not only to tolerate, there's a lot of like, I tolerate you. I don't want to be tolerated. There's a level of acceptance that we'd like to get to as humans where I accept you and I accept your differences and realize that I can learn things from our differences. It doesn't mean we have to have the same exact thinking about everything. That's just not going to happen ever.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't think even twins have the exact same thinking about everything.
Yep.
So,
And even
you
in
know,
growing up in the same environment, they still don't. Yep.
I know because my mom brought me up, and there's so many things we don't agree on. Even when I'm eating, I like too much salt, and I grew up under her cooking, and she didn't put that much salt in her food. And I do this thing that is so rude. Like I pick the food, and before I taste it, I'm salting it.
Oh yeah, because you already know. You're like, ah, I already know. It's
Yeah,
gonna need a little.
yeah, yeah. She give me the side eye, and I don't care. Yeah, she's being judgy. Yeah.
I do not accept your judgment.
Well, Devlin, thank you so much for sharing about speaking down barriers and the kind of work that you do. Viewers, listeners, you can always learn more about this organization by going to www.speakdownbarriers.org, speakdownbarriers.org, and you will find their social media handles. Follow them, support them. Can you donate online as well? Is your
Yes, yes,
website?
yes, yes. We have a lot of individual donors that help us as well.
Well, so if you're hearing this conversation on the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, wherever you are maybe watching this, remember www.speakdownbarriers.org. Support their work. Let's work to build humanity together. And a little bit more. I did mention it before, but let me tell you that community grants program that Chapman Culture Center has awards up to $5,000 per application, and it is open to both individual artists and nonprofit government agencies. So you can learn more about that grant application process at chapmanculturecenter.org/grants /grants. Go learn about it. You may be able to get a grant if you are in the Spartanburg local area. And if you're not in the Spartanburg local area, look around your community. There are foundations, there are grants
Mhm.
giving organizations that you could go to for help. And as Devlin was saying, Speaking Down Barriers is working with people across states. And so if you need to reach out, go again to speakdownbarriers.org. They're willing to work with you. We're trying to get humanity to be at that better place so that we can all live together in harmony. Reach out to Devlin. Now, Devlin, before we go, and we're running out of time. Oh, I just lost her. Oh my goodness. Well, I was gonna ask Devlin to share with us before we left if she had any final words. But you know what? I think I know what those final words are. Speak down barriers. Let us not be judgmental. Let us not put up those barriers. Together, we can go far. This has been Margie TV, amplifying Black voices, and we will be with you next week celebrating Women's History Month. I cannot wait for you to see that lineup. We have some amazing trailblazers coming up on the show. So subscribe to Margie TV. And you know what? Leave a review on that podcast if you enjoy our conversations. It has been such a joy being on your screens. I hope you come back, be well, and again, together we can go far.